Hello, this is video number 4 about using the Access database for the Mekong Fish Network standard sampling program. And in this video we'll go over how to add multiple gear types for a single data sheet. So in the first 3 videos we entered the header information for this data sheet, entered a single gear type, and then entered the species for that gear type. But the datasheet has a second gear type listed, and so in order to add that, we use these buttons here. So you can see that the database only has a single gear type shown on the screen, unlike the datasheet that has multiple boxes listed for each gear type. So for using the database, we use these buttons here to add a new gear type or delete a gear type. And these 2 buttons allow us to move back and forth between the different gear types for this data sheet. So this data sheet has 2 gear types entered. We've entered the first one already, so now I'll add a second gear type by clicking this button. And this brings up a new field here that's blank for the gear type information and the species information. So this type of gear is also a long line like our first gear type. So I'll select hook and line gear, and the number of units is left blank. And if I scroll down here all the way to the bottom, you'll see that this records field is now showing 2 of 2, meaning that I have 2 gear types entered for this data sheet. This is in contrast to the overall records shown in this lower box here. This is referring to the total number of data sheets entered in the database. So right now I only have 1 data sheet entered, and on that data sheet there are 2 gear types listed. And if I want to go back to my previous gear type, I can click on Previous Gear, and this brings up the information that I already entered. So now I'll go back to the gear type I was on by clicking Next Gear. And so again we'll fill out the gear type information, number of units, and then for gear type this is also a long line, and I'll enter the hook size, which is 10, or sorry, the number of hooks, which is 10, and the hook size, which is 15. Next I'll enter the fishing time, which is 4 p.m. So I'll enter that as 1600 hours. When I hit enter, it converts it to 4 o'clock p.m. And then the end time is 7 p.m. So I'll enter that as 1900 hours. And this converts to 7 p.m. and fills in the total number of hours fished, which is 3. Next I'll type in the fishing method like before, which is leave in the water. And then finally I would enter the habitat type from this menu. However, on this data field the habitat is left blank. So if I press escape, I can exit out of this menu without selecting anything and leave that field blank. Next I'll scroll down and enter the catch information for this second gear type. First I'll enter the total catch in kilograms, which is 0.41 kilograms. Oops. Then I would check if this is a subsample. Since it's not, I'll leave that blank. And finally I'll fill in the species information. So for species we have Bulgarius, species uncertain. We have 3 individuals. The total weight is 0.41 kilograms. The basket size is small. The maximum standard length is 23 centimeters. And the remaining lengths are 16 and 14. And there was no photo taken. So now I can review my data entry. So the header information stays the same for all the gear types on a single data sheet. And if I want to look back and forth at the different gear types, I can use previous gear to bring me back to the first gear entry. And this is showing that this is record number 1 of 2. And then if I want to look at that second gear entry again, I can go to next gear. And this brings up entry 2 of 2. So this shows me that I've got the 2 data sheets, or 2 gear types entered completely for this data sheet, and that would complete the data entry for this data sheet.